Hey, what's up, everybody? This is an open discussion with C3 Films. My name is Chris, and this is.
Cheryl.
And today we're going to be talking about the Netflix show Dragon Age Absolution. We are going to be going into spoiler territory for the first two episodes, so if you haven't seen them, you can go and check it out on Netflix and then come back and see what we have to say about it. But let's go ahead and just jump right into this. So, Dragon Age Absolution. It is the Netflix show that is based on the video game Dragon Age, which has had, I think, at this point, up to three games: Dragon Age Origins, Dragon Age 2, Dragon Age Inquisition. I believe those are three games, and it has a new one coming out in the future, I believe. But anyway, it's another one of those adaptations that Netflix has done, similar to like Castlevania or Arcane, that is an adaptation of a video game property into some type of animated form. And so I actually have not played any of the Dragon Age games. I have friends that have played them and enjoyed them. I have played other BioWare games, but this one is not one that I ever got the time to work into my schedule. And so I don't know much about the world. I'm not really that familiar with the Dragon Age world. So all of this was going to be very new for me, but I mean at the same time it's magic, it's medieval times, it's elves, it's dwarves, it's humans, it's bow and arrows and swords and shields and all this other stuff. So it's like we've seen all this stuff before. It's not that hard to figure out, especially when you're used to seeing other things that are like it. So even without any knowledge of the video games, so far it feels like it's super easy to understand and get into the world. But I'm sure there are references and maybe even characters from the games that are appearing or like that we're seeing. But I also don't know where in the timeline this takes place for the game. So that stuff is lost on me. So really, this is just gonna be, and I don't think you've played the games either. So this conversation is just gonna really be two people who are kind of just talking about this show from just the knowledge of the show.
Yeah, I'll do you one better. I heard about a game that has the word dragon in it, but is not anything remotely related to Dragon Age. Stop laughing.
Yes, that is a thing that happened. So, that
But
being said,
I was able to follow what was going on. So you don't need to be familiar with the games to enjoy the show.
yes. However, leave us down in the comments below if you have played the games and there are references that we're missing out on in the first few episodes. Please feel free to let us know because we're all about that. And maybe eventually I'll play one of these games because the world does seem pretty cool. But as far as the first two episodes go, we come in and we see our two, what we assume are going to be our two main characters, one human and one elf, as another group of humans are climbing a wall and seeming to be very, I guess, inept at being able to do what they're doing. And you find out they're being used as a distraction, and our main character shoots an arrow and drops them and uses the guards to distract them, and then they are able to complete the mission, but it results in all these people getting like captured. So the thing
Well,
about
actually, did they get captured? I think we
they
don't really know. Or they got
they say
imprisoned. You're right. Yeah.
yeah, they say in the next scene that because one of the guys, I think it's his nephew or his kid or something like that, it
Yeah.
was what among the group and now is in jail, and the main character, she does not care. So um yeah, so to start off, I mean, like the action, the animation, it all looks good. It's really cool. The voice acting is top notch. I think Ashley Birch is one of them, like one of the. I don't think she's the main character. I think she's the dragon character, the female dragon character. But they have like a talented voice cast that like works, and that is recognizable. So that's all well and cool. And as far as the first like couple of scenes, I was getting pulled in just from the standpoint of I like animation and I like seeing some of these types of situations play out. I will say right off the bat, just so people know, I did not immediately start by liking the main character. She seems like she's kind of a jerk to me in that first episode.
So I was pulled in because I was like, oh, it's gonna be about dragons, and so
Maybe. Who knows? It's called
maybe.
Dragon Age.
I
Maybe.
mean, I think how much of it did
Lord of the
you
Rings is about
watch?
rings. Lord of the Rings is literally about one ring, but it's called Lord of the Rings.
No, there were three of them given to the elves, seven were given to the dwarves, and there were nine that were given to men. Or
Oh,
is that,
okay.
did I get
Oh,
that right? I think I
all
did.
right.
But
I think I
anyways.
just got schooled. All right, back to Dragon Age. There's probably gonna be dragons in this show.
um, I. Sorry, I'm reading the comments from Playback. But anyway, I actually wasn't like when I first threw it on. I actually didn't intend to like it was before we even decided to do it for the show. I just threw it on, and I wasn't quite impressed by the opening shot because I was like, oh, that's some pretty like 3D, not very
Oh yeah,
detailed
it's a 3D used to
animation.
pan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then I saw the characters, and it was only just that part of it, and then I started to sink into the show. I thought it was really captivating like immediately after that, and I was just kind of interested in like knowing what the show is gonna be about, and I'm like, oh, it's gonna be a heist, so that's pretty cool. And then it wasn't until the whole thing where I forget his name, like Fairchild,
Fairchild or
something,
something. Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
He
The,
shows
the the
up.
guy who hires them all on.
Yeah, the one who hires everybody, he comes, and so Miriam, the main character, starts fighting her gang that she was working with, and she takes out this
I
like
love
string,
her
this
weapon.
wire. Yeah, and like the combat in this is pretty cool. Like the fight scenes in general are like really interesting, and that's something that I think Chris and I are we always take note of, is just having good fight scenes, because it's always applaudable when you can make it interesting. But anyways, when she takes out that wire and she like wraps it around that guy's neck, I was like, this is not for kids. And it all started to like snowball like after that, because there was like,
Language.
yeah, there's language and there's just a lot of like violence in it. So I was like, all right, I like this. I
Yeah.
like
You're
this.
like, I'm in.
Yep. I mean, because, like, if it's for kids, a lot of the time it doesn't appeal to an older audience. But this is definitely made for people like Chris and I. So, I mean, just generally, I'm not too sure because I hadn't finished. I'm not sure how many episodes you've watched.
Watch 3 total.
Okay, I think I watched three or four. So, um, I just think that I'm not sure how the story is gonna be. I don't think it's too complex in the sense of
It doesn't seem like it's
storytelling,
gonna be.
but it still seems like interesting and intriguing enough for me to like keep going. Like I really want to know what happens to these characters. I feel very invested, even though they're all kind of up to no good. I
Yeah.
can't.
They're all technically criminals.
Yeah, exactly. But even the characters that are like in the palace are not good
Good.
either, right?
Yeah.
So we have another one of these situations where like all the characters are kind of on the gray line. They're not quite good and they're not quite bad. They all just have their own motivations for what they want for their lives and their own best interests. And like you said, in some ways it's hard to like the main character, but you still kind of root for her, I guess, in a
Yeah.
sense, because you can tell that she's gone through things. And
Right. And that's what I was gonna say. Is just that like her attitude at first, like kind of felt like it was a little too much for me. But then you start to notice, you start to learn that she has kind of gone through some things, and you start to really get a sense that there's been some stuff that she has like really survived that is just terrible. And so then you start to have context. So like context absolutely can start to reshape the way you look at that character. You also do start to see more of a soft side to that character as well, which is nice. But then at the same time, that you see the character do something so despicable. In the second episode, I'm pretty sure the character basically gives away a kid that's trying to hide from someone that is clearly abusing them, and she turns over the kid even though she could have helped, but then she regrets it, and then that leads to whatever other stuff that happens in the show, but she actually never gets to find that kid based off of what I've seen so far. So she basically, she screwed that kid over. So like these aren't, like you said, these aren't great people. These are people who are absolutely in it for themselves. They will do and make decisions that are going to benefit themselves. And so like that, but that is interesting because the thing about Dragon Age is that I don't know much about the game, but I do know that it's rated M for mature as far as the game rating goes. And so when I was entering into this show, I went in with that expectation at the very least. I expected that it was going to be a mature rated show because it's based off of a mature rated game. And I also expected that they would have deeper, interesting characters because the game has deeper, interesting characters. And obviously, it's a show that's like 25 to 30 minutes long. There's only 6 episodes. So there's not that much time like you would have like in an RPG, which can span from like as low as 40 hours to as much as like 150 to 200 hours. You don't have that much time to kind of like get your audience to like know these characters. So obviously it wouldn't be as in depth as like, it would be in like a video game, but at the same time, I still was wanting to have characters that would have some amount of depth to them, even if we couldn't learn everything there was to learn about them. And based off the first couple episodes I've seen, I am starting to feel like these characters do have other things going on when you see like certain moments, and they also don't always agree with each other.
Yeah, and it's a really cool dynamic, and it's kind of like they have this group, and then the group, there's some, spoilers, but there's some betrayal that goes on, but there's also these unique or like, interesting relationships that are developing or, already exist between some of them. And I think the fact that they're kind of maybe not really fleshing out these relationships, but they're giving, a little bit of time to, explore these relationships. They just make it a point to make sure that what each of these characters have in with each other. So you have like Hera and Miriam. They have a past. There's some romance going on, and then you have these other characters like the dwarf, and then her Miriam's best friend, the guy, and they're kind of like. He's kind of like flirting with the dwarf, and you can tell like the dwarf is like,
it's like, whoa,
I'm not sure about this, but
I don't mind this, but at the same time, what are you doing?
Yeah. But from what I understand, that race of I'm not sure what he is, but his race is like a kind of sensual flirty race. So I don't know if there's something like developing there or not, but it's interesting, and I have questions, and I'm interested to see what's gonna go on between them. But then you also have that betrayal,
and we have to talk about that.
Yeah, and so you start out with this group at the very beginning, and then it's already falling apart. And also these episodes are very short. They're only like 30 minutes long, or I think even less. And the fact that there's only 6 episodes kind of blows my mind, because it doesn't feel like the episodes are short, because there's so much that happens within each episode. But it doesn't feel like I'm missing things. It doesn't feel like oh, this is going so fast, why are they rushing through it?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, do you feel like they're rushing things?
I mean, I feel like maybe they could take their time with a little, like, some of it, but I think because the pace was established at the very beginning, like with how the team was formed, and they had the plan. Although there was one point where I'm like, oh, okay, they're gonna go to this place, and the next thing you know, like, oh, they're there already.
They're there already. Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that the thing that's helping me stay with the show and not feel like it's going too fast is they're really being precise with the moments that they chose to put in it and the moments that they choose to detail.
Yeah, and so one of the things that I was wondering, and I think you've seen one more episode than me, but like when by the time I get to episode 3 and they're still in the palace or castle or wherever this place is, I started asking myself, oh, does this entire show just take place during this heist? Because we're still here. And I don't know how we have time to like leave and set up something else because there's only 6 episodes that are like 25 minutes or whatever. So that was a question that I was like having. I do like the fact that the second episode starts off from a different perspective. We meet the people that are in the palace. We meet the mage and his, I guess, his protector, bodyguard, and right off the bat, they both seem really cool. Like this is one of those examples that you were talking about where these are characters that have an established relationship, and we're getting to see that relationship as it's already existed, and you get the sense that there's a history there, but we don't really learn much about that history. So it's not like we're going super in depth with these two characters, but we're getting enough to at least have an understanding of the surroundings behind these characters, and that's pretty cool. That in a show that's only 6 episodes with a bunch of characters, there's like 7 or 8 characters. That's a fine way to kind of handle that, and so I like seeing that these characters have the thing that the not Deus Ex Machina, the MacGuffin. They have the MacGuffin of the story, which is the thing that they're trying to take, the circlet. And circulum. Thank you. I said circlet. That's fine. It's circle. It's circular. Same difference. But yeah, they have the circulum. They have the one ring. Okay, we're not gonna get into that right now. So they have the circulum, and so the whole thing that I like about it is that we learn more about the circulum. We know what this person's desire is. This person wants to bring someone back, and through brief flashes from Miriam, we get the sense that he wants to bring back someone that Miriam killed. And I don't have that answer for sure. I'm just going off of what I've seen so far, what has been suggested, and I like things like that. I like learning about these characters and their histories organically, and then of course we'll find out later whether or not I'm right or not. But that is what has been pulling me in and getting me more invested in like just seeing how these things like are going to play out. And then on top of it, we still have really cool magic and action sequences. In the second episode, they fight a demon that they were having a conversation with, and the demon that tries to steal the circulum, and then they're able to beat it and lock the circulum back in. And then no sooner than that's done, do our main characters get inside the place and now are ready to steal it. And there's still like episode left at that point. So it's like it's moving along, but it doesn't feel like whiplash. I'm not feeling like I'm being thrown from one side to the other and I'm like losing my place. It's entertaining, and when I had only planned on watching 2 episodes, but when I finished the second one, and the third episode is like it's the whole thing with the betrayal and the palace like having everything, all these creatures being released, I wanted to watch more. And in all honesty, I would have watched more if I didn't have something I needed to do.
Exactly. Yeah, that's how I felt. I was I think I watched episode 4, and there's only 2 left, and
yeah.
And I was like, okay, I really want to watch more, but I have to go to sleep. I mean, I guess I could have stayed up for another hour, but I think it was already very late. So. But yeah, there's just something about it. Like, I'm just really impressed by how precise. Like, I can't think of a better word than than that. But they were very precise about what they decided goes into the show, and keep it moving along without feeling like it's going by really quickly. And
Yeah.
the other thing is, like you said, it's very organic how things are revealed. So there's no one that really just stands there and like explains everything that's going on that you need to know. You're finding out things through the actions of what people are doing and the kind of the consequences of actions that were taken. So it's like something would happen, and then the character would be like upset about it because of something else that happened to them in the past. And so it comes
Right.
out that way where you really are finding out things because of things that are happening, even
Yeah.
though some of it is like flashback.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And talking about how things are happening, we mentioned briefly that they get betrayed, but it's not just the person that they get betrayed, but the person that betrays them dies. They don't know that they were betrayed. They don't know why this person died. There's a brief moment where they think that Miriam was the one that killed him, but even that is handled pretty well, because I was like, well, you can look at him and see that he hasn't been slashed up, and she uses knives, and that's exactly what the character says. Her friend, it's like, hey, one, I know her. Two, here's all these different things to tell you why she's not the one that killed this guy. And I was like, okay, that's cool, because they addressed something. Like, they should believe, they walked in on her with blood on her hands and the circlet in her hands. They would think that she killed him, but we can't stay on this forever. But we also want to be smart about it, and they found a way to be smart about it to prove her innocence, but also be like, okay, we had the moment, now let's move on. And then Hera is trapped, and she's trapped in something where that we find out later has a dragon coming out of it. So there's your dragon. It's about dragons, Dragon Age. And then I forget this girl's name because it's always how it's pronounced, but the dragon-headed girl, like I think her name begins with a Q or something. It's really hard for me. It's Aquarium or something like that. But she is like missing because she like had to run away. So all of a sudden, half their party is like MIA.
Split up,
Or
yeah.
yeah. So like the stakes and everything, it really starts moving. And I don't know what's going to happen to Hera in the episode that I've gotten to. I don't know if Hera is going to get killed by that dragon or escape. She's in the opening, so I'm assuming that she's going to be around. But then the whole team is in the opening, and at least one of them is dead. So who knows what's going to happen now?
Yeah, I mean, I do want to let's talk a little bit about that betrayal because one, I didn't see it coming, and so I was like, oh, okay, so this heist is really not going smoothly at all. Shocker, and I thought I was just really surprised, not just about the betrayal, but that this girl Hera, who you kind of are led to think that she's not a very strong character, but she like fights back. Like she gets stabbed in the back, but somehow still finds the strength, within her to like fight him still, and she does a hell of a job fighting him. And
As a caster.
yeah, and essentially like. I was like, she basically shot him with a shotgun because she threw she just shot those rocks in him, and that was basically the killing blow. And I kind of liked that because I was like, okay, so one of the guys who I thought was a main guy in this show is now dead. Somebody died in episode 2. Episode 2, and so I was just super shocked. And then I guess the other thing that I thought was cool was that Hera takes a potion and she heals, and I was like, that's pretty cool because I thought they were gonna kill her. And
yeah,
not
we do
him.
that in games all the time.
Yeah.
So it's also cool. It's
Yeah,
actually incorporated.
Yeah, like it's a nod to the game, but like in the sense of a show, like something like this, like what would typically happen is the guy that does the betrayal survives and he becomes the villain.
true.
And then the person that gets stabbed is the one who doesn't survive, and then people don't realize like, oh, who killed her, or like, they realize like that there was a betrayal, and then they go after the guy. But this is quite the opposite, because she lives, he dies, and people don't know that there's a betrayal. So what is this show? But it's that kind of twist and that kind of different thing that is happening in the show, I think, is what makes it so intriguing.
Yeah, no, I agree. I like the way that played out, and I also like the fact that she was still trapped at the end. So she was able to still give the information so that our heroes can know what happened, and it wouldn't just be a thing of like, well, I guess we'll never know, or we have to use some strange magic to figure it out. Like she lives so she can tell them what happened, but she also is still trapped, and so she can't go with them. So there's still this element of, well, we still lost something, and we still lost somebody, and then even her making the decision that says, hey, as long as I sit here and you're looking at me, you're not gonna leave. So I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna go, and I'm gonna walk down here and face my death, and because it's the only way I can think of to save you, because that's the only way I can get you. I can think of to force you to go. So and I like moments like that, and I also really like the potion moment because it feels very like, yeah, sure, it's in video games, but it feels very um I guess RPG nature, right? Like you heal in video games with potions. You see the same thing in The Witcher. Like he takes potions for healing and for powers and stuff like that. So I like it when this stuff is baked into the world and they don't just pretend like it doesn't exist. Um, because it's like, yeah, sure, healing potions can be considered something that is like a get out of jail free card, but not when you don't have many of them, and not when you have fewer than you have people that are injured. So they can add an extra element to the show, because you can think people are safe as long as they have potions. But the moment that they don't have a potion, now you're like, okay, now I'm legitimately worried that you might not be able to survive the situation. So I like, it's such a small thing that I'm harping on right now, but I like elements like that, because they do that also in another show that I would want us to watch eventually called Vox Machina, that's on Amazon. But I like it when shows kind of address the RPG nature that of the worlds that they exist in.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I knew it was a game when I started watching it. I just had never seen it, but when I saw her take the potion, that it really stood out. I don't know why. It just really stood out to me because I'm like, it just feels like, whoever played the game, like if they're watching this, I feel that there's probably a lot of elements in the show that are giving nod to the game, and that's probably one of them. But it's also true for anyone that plays, games like that. So
Yeah, exactly, absolutely. So yeah, and I'm excited to watch more. I'll probably watch more before I go to bed tonight. Like I'm pretty sure I'm gonna finish this by tomorrow.
I'm probably gonna finish it tonight.
Yep, there you go. So yeah, and so I mean, it sounds like we're both enjoying it, and I have to say, like, quickly before we go, I'm very surprised at the quality that we're getting for video game adaptations, because for a long time, and maybe this is I'm gonna leave. This is possibly what my argument actually is, but for a long time, it felt like video game adaptations were terrible, but that was also because they were usually live action. And there are obviously a few video game adaptations that were still animated that were also bad, but we had more that were tried to be attempted in as a live action form of the video game that ended up just kind of failing. But in recent years, whether it was, how spectacular Arcane is, or how amazing Castlevania is, or even how absolutely dope the Edge Runners, the Cyberpunk Edge Runners anime is. Like, we are getting video game adaptations that are just on a whole nother level, that in some cases can even be just as exciting, if not more exciting, than the games that they're based off of. And so I am happy to say that for me, Dragon Age Absolution has me excited to explore more of this world in this animated universe. But it also has me excited to like try out this game one day in the future to kind of see how these races are handled in a longer form experience. So I'm very excited about the future for game adaptations as they pertain to animation now.
Wouldn't it be cool if they made an animation for Kingdom Hearts. I'm just
I
kidding.
mean,
I'm kidding. Um, but actually, I was thinking about it because I have never played the Final Fantasy saga. I just don't think that it's the kind of game for me. But I understand that the story for Final Fantasy a lot of people really like, and so that's actually one of the ones that I'm hoping they one day turn into something to watch, so I don't have to play the game.
there's at least one. There's Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. Actually, there's two, I think. There's a movie for Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, and there's a movie for Final Fantasy 15. But I believe both of those cases, I believe, are extras for the story. They're not the story of the games proper, but neither are the things that we're talking about. All these things exist in the universe around the games, but they aren't the stories of the games themselves. So those are things that exist that you could watch that are Final Fantasy related. And one of them came out when we were in high school, I believe. So, so one of them's a little bit older. But yeah, like it's really cool, and hopefully that they'll continue to do things like that as these games become more popular and get even more of a fan base, and it can find a way to bring other people in that wouldn't experience the game otherwise. Like you said, as someone who doesn't play Final Fantasy but knows that it's great, it gives you a way to experience like one of these worlds of Final Fantasy, because each world is basically an anthology. Every numbered title is a different cast of characters in a different world for the most part. So, but yeah, that's what we thought. Is there anything else you wanted to bring up about Dragon Age before we get out of here? We touched on a lot.
No, I think that's it. Actually, much like the show, this episode was a lot longer than I thought it would be. It just went by so fast.
Exactly, because there's a lot to like. But yeah, that's what we thought about the Dragon Age Absolution. What did you guys think about it? Did you enjoy it yourselves? Have you played any of the video games from BioWare? Like, do you think that this is a great is this a good adaptation for you as a lover of the games? As people who haven't played the games but are just kind of existing on the periphery of them, this has been very exciting for us. But whatever you guys thought about it, comment below, let us know. And while you're down there, if you guys like, share, and subscribe. Even if you don't, though, I have been Chris, and this has been
Cheryl, and we'll see you all next time.